I've been keeping pretty quiet about the multitude of issues that's plaguing our world these days. I've been releasing less content and trying to take time to educate, listen, and reflect. And it's been eye-opening to say the least. But with all the awful things going on, there is opportunity for positive and long-lasting change in the human race. And there are countless people out there standing up and doing their part in the name of peace and equality. Today, I wanted to use my platform to tell one of those stories. As you may know, June was Pride Month, celebrating the LGBTQ community. And if you live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, you might have noticed that on Paris Avenue, there is a rainbow flag hanging on almost every house. This is because of the actions, charity, and courage of my good friend Tom Ryan Stout. You may remember him from the Drummond Island video I made a while back. What he did with Pride on Paris inspired me, so I asked Tom to come on my channel and tell his story.
Okay, so thank you for sitting down and talking to me about this. I want to precurse it because you told me about this idea before and it really, really inspired me. So I felt like this story should be told from the person that conceived the entire thing. So let's just start by, what is Pride on Paris and how did you come up with the idea?
So Pride on Paris was kind of, I guess, an effort to celebrate Pride meaningfully with shelter in place going on.
Yeah.
Kind of the new normal is what we're all experiencing right now. And, I was quarantining from mid-March onward. And as time crept along, the middle of May came by and June is Pride Month. And it's something that I look forward to every year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, man, this probably isn't going to happen in the parameters that I'm normally used to. And that's kind of like a grieving, sad moment.
Yeah.
My neighbor across the street flies a pride flag year round. And I spent a lot of time looking out the windows here, and that was kind of inspiring. And I know that moving into this neighborhood, that was super meaningful to me on a comfort level to be like, oh, there's a visible representation here. That makes me feel good. And so I know that I'm, not the only person that identifies with the LGBTQ plus community on the street. And so I figured that what if the entire street got flooded with that kind of visible representation for Pride? So that was kind of like the goal and the inspiration.
How many flags did you have to get?
So I did a count, and I did it a couple times over, but it was rough past like 127 houses. So I just got just over 130 flags.
Okay. And then, so the goal was to just basically try to get a flag on every house just to represent the street. So it's Pride on Paris, which is how many blocks? Is
5 blocks.
5 blocks worth of flags on every house. So what were your expectations? What were you hoping for?
So the expectations, like obviously, you have your idealist and then your reality. And so I was hoping that every house, 127 homes would fly the flag. But in reality, I know that, there's some friction, with this. And even as a person that identifies as LGBTQ, putting up flags for me is scary. Mm-hmm. It's an outward statement, and it's a vulnerable move, and you are making a statement to the world saying that this is what I am, this is what I believe, and this is how I feel. And it's a scary thing to put up a flag. So I can't imagine, people that are less comfortable than what I am would go through in that situation. So ideally, I was hoping for 50%.
Yeah.
50% turnout.
Participation. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Take us through like what steps you took to prepare for this. So like, what did you have to get? What did you have to prepare? And what did you want to say to somebody? Like, you went house to house for this.
Yeah.
So like, did you have like all right, this is my spiel, like what did you prepare for it?
I did. So the project, to give you a really long-winded answer, definitely transformed over time. I made the decision, I allocated the funds and was just like, pressing the click button on the shopping cart. We bought the flags. I started drafting a flyer to go along with it, researching printing companies, kind of bouncing off ideas of you and other people that, I respect the opinion of. And then George Floyd was murdered. And I completely tabled the entire project. I thought it was insensitive to kind of proceed forward when there is a much higher priority of social activism that needed to take place.
Yeah.
So, I attended, protests, and I tried to, in whatever way that I could facilitate the solidarity of that movement with who I am as a person and
Sure.
whatever privilege I may have that goes along with that. After I think it was mid-June when the Supreme Court ruled that it was not legal to discriminate against queer people in workplaces.
Yeah.
And that was a huge victory, especially in the middle of Pride Month, which was awesome. And I kind of the wheels started turning where, the movement isn't that separate. It's not two exclusive entities. All of the rights that I enjoy as a gay man currently were all won by queer people of color, most notably Black trans women in the Stonewall riots. And I can fly this flag and transform this movement in solidarity.
Yeah.
So I modified my flyer. The goal was to fly the flag and then donate to charities that are going to help heal communities of color. So I chose Black Lives Matter and the Black Trans Advocacy Coalition. So I got it all together, finally got assembled everything, and flyers were printed, flags were ready to go. And the day came where I was like, okay, I'm going to go door to door and deliver this to every single neighbor that I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to introduce myself as a member of this community and literally come out to every single person that lives on my street.
Yeah.
And so I came to the first house and I was terrified.
I bet.
I was absolutely terrified. And most people were actually enjoying their porches, and there were a few people that weren't home and I just left it in mailboxes, but most people that I talked to were very well received. I did have kind of like a pitch, like, I'm Tom, I'm your neighbor, I live down the street and it's Pride Month and I bought you a flag. Do you want to fly it? Okay, cool. Also there's some information here. Please consider donating to these organizations.
Yeah. So it wasn't long-winded. You didn't have to like door salesman-y. It was just like, take it if you want it. If you don't, that's fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There were a few, really meaningful conversations though, from a place that originated in discomfort. I would go to a house and they'd be like, oh, I'm not sure. Asked a few questions, and I kind of told them how it's scary for me too, and I totally understand if not, but
Yeah.
even if you don't take the flag, please consider donating, and happy Pride.
Yeah.
Just trying to spread love and compassion.
Right. Yeah. Which is pretty much the overall arcing idea.
Completely.
And that's what really struck me, which I really, it's awful what's happening with George Floyd and everything, but it really evolved something for you in this project that I think turned into more and reached out further, in my opinion. Like, it struck me as way more inspirational when it was like, this doesn't need to be canceled. This can do more than I ever thought it could. And that's sort of like what it looked like for me.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that's how it reads to you, because that's how it felt for me.
Yeah.
And the overall response has been a really, really great one.
You went house to house, every single person. You talked to hundreds of people. Well, 150, 200 people probably.
Yeah, ish.
On this whole thing.
For sure.
And then that was it. You went back home and you're like, let's see how this goes. So what was the outcome?
So I was pretty nervous, but still pretty excited. And so it took 2 days. I did 3 blocks on a Thursday, and then the other 2 blocks on a Friday. And so that Saturday when I was driving into work, I definitely did like the wind up. I went around and then drove the entire distance of Paris. And I was a little bit overwhelmed with some emotion. I didn't even expect, I was maybe like one peppered here, but it was just a consecutive boom, 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 boom. And it was an emotional moment for sure. In addition to just the flags being flown on the flyer, I gave my contact information just in case, someone held on to it and was like, well, I'm not comfortable. I said, just, give me a call and I'll find a home for it.
Yeah.
people ended up just texting me and calling me and leaving me voicemails and saying, "This is awesome," introducing me to them where they live and who they are and what they do, and it was just an overwhelming amount of thanks and kind of excitement about everything, which was more than I even expected. It was a really, really great response.
Yeah, it was a huge success, and that's one thing we talked about was you said something to me, and I'm paraphrasing, but you were like, it turns out what sometimes all people need is just the flag provided.
Yeah.
You know, like people don't go out and purchase maybe a pride flag or a Black Lives Matter sign in their yard or anything because they don't know where to go or they just don't take the time to do it. But if someone gives it to them, I think you said it was kind of more refreshing to be like, they were so receptive, they just needed the tools. What advice would you give to, it's not easy putting yourself out there. It's not only is it not easy to put yourself out there, it's not easy to bring an idea to fruition. To even like, for me, I have ideas floating around all over the place and then they just sort of go away. You know, so like what advice, if you would have any for people that are like, I want to do something, like how did you muster that up where you're just like, I'm doing this?
I think that what made it easy for me was that it's something that I feel so strongly about, just as a person, and it wasn't something that was always there. It's kind of a recent thing to have to celebrate Pride and to be outward and to show what visibility can do for a community of marginalized people. But there were definite setbacks. It was scary throughout the whole endeavor till I delivered to the very last house. Every time I would go up to a house, it was nerves and fear.
Yeah.
So if there was any sort of recommendation, there's no like equation or tool, but it's the follow through and it's the the being comfortable, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think that those were kind of the only two things that really made it happen.
Yeah. Being comfortable, being vulnerable. Was it easier after you got the first few houses over with?
Yeah. There was
like,
for sure.
Like, dip the toe in the water and
Yeah.
then just be like, okay, I can go swimming now. Like,
Totally.
I feel a little bit better about it.
There was a momentum,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, I just wanted to tell that story and use my channel as a platform as well because you inspired me in that way where we've had discussions before of just like, sometimes some of the content I'm releasing during what's happening just seems inconsequential. It seems unimportant. And it's not. I don't think that the content I release is unimportant, but it just like, I don't ever want to think that, that it's just like, well, life goes on. Like, I don't want that attitude with all of this.
Right.
So I felt like your story was needed to be told and I can use my platform to reach more people. So.
Well, I'm honored and I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate the effort. So congratulations on all of it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
People come up with great ideas all the time. Sometimes we remember them, write them down, or tell a friend, but usually they fall to the wayside. Often, the most difficult part of an idea is acting on it, just getting it started and having the courage to write it out and see how it goes. Tom decided to take a chance and act on his idea, and as a result, he made this messed up world just a little bit better to live in and gave the people in his community a voice. So I ask, what ideas do you have? And more importantly, which ones are you willing to carry out until the very end?